What is good, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video, and in this one I'm going to be talking about the one and only Tesla stock and what you should be looking out for the future. I'm also going to do some in-depth technical analysis and give you guys my price prediction for tomorrow based off what the charts are showing and based off what the data is suggesting. I'm also going to talk about the PCE report that came out and why this is going to be very important for the market, for Tesla, and the economy going forward. I'm going to talk about why on Earth July is going to be another very important month for the markets and Tesla too, as we have lots of earnings coming out as well. And I'm going to end the video by talking about what is going on with the man, the myth, the legend himself, Elon Musk, as it has been quite a bit of time since we last saw him active on Twitter. Now, before I break any of this down, before I get into any more details, I do have to mention a couple of things real quick. Firstly, I'm not a financial planner. Don't take any of this as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button if you want to see more videos like this. It not only benefits me, benefits the entire Tesla community as a whole. And the last things, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull, the link down below, and deposit any amount of money into the account, you're guaranteed 6 free stocks, each worth up to $2,000. And you could always sell these 6 free stocks for cash and use that cash to buy some Tesla shares for free in this limited time offer that ends today. So this is your last chance to get this offer. Please check it out to get those 6 free stocks. With that out of the way, let's get on with the video. So looking at Tesla, this thing is down about 1.76% for the day and a little bit red in the after hours. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if we did see kind of like a continuation of this trend based off how the market is performing. But remember, it's not necessarily the end of the world. Now, I want to talk about PCE first before I get into more details about the market in Tesla and the futures. But looking at this real quick, we can see that it wasn't necessarily a bad PCE report. And to many of our surprises, it was actually a bit of a beat. We actually did a little bit better than the forecast would have kind of showed us, right? Because the previous report showed a core 4.9% PCE price index report, or that's kind of like how it measured inflation without putting much weight on gasoline and food and other energy sectors. And then it ended up being about 4.7% for the month of I believe May, instead of the 4.8% forecast. So it did a little bit better, which was a pretty good sign. But then if we look at the other report from PCE, which does account for energy, it actually held at about 6.3%, which was once again kind of a little bit under the estimates, which was pretty decent, but it wasn't really enough to really cause the market to make a good move to the upside. And to me, a little bit surprising. Typically, when we get pretty decent reports like this, after all of the bad reports we've been getting, which involve inflation for so long, typically the market should have seen a bit of a bounce, but this market was not ready for that. And it did look like it was kind of moving more on a technical basis because the market was just pushing down. I want to show you why on earth that ended up happening. So if we actually look at the SPY, check this out. This is very interesting. If I actually kind of zoom out of the chart, you guys will see this more clearly. And we could see almost like a textbook downward trend that was just perpetuating. We got this temporary relief bounce right here, right? But even though we got this bounce, it's starting to form a head and shoulders, right? And if you don't know what it looks like, this is essentially what it would look like. We have the neckline at the very bottom, which is the support that holds us up. We have the left shoulder, the head, which pushes us up even higher, followed by a bit of a drop, a bounce to that right shoulder, then another big continuation to the downside. And what else is very interesting with the SPY is the fact that we could almost see this playing out pretty well, and we have this gap down here. So we can see the left shoulder was here, the head was here, the right shoulder is forming, and it does seem more probable from a technical standpoint that we are going to see that like drop, and we happen to have a gap down here, right? So this gap is right over here at this 467, 468 range, somewhere around there. So that's just an indication that there would be more downside for the markets going forward. But once we fill that gap down there, it is very possible for us to get a bit of a bounce, and the market could actually turn a little bullish after that. But until we get there, we're seeing a very similar setups throughout the market. If I actually go back to what the Nasdaq is showing, very, very similar. Look at this. It's so similar because the market is almost moving in unison right now, and that is something that doesn't always happen in a typical market. But this is a special bear market, and this will affect stocks almost collectively, including Tesla. Now, what this is essentially showing us is we got this left shoulder here, we got the head right here, and we're forming that right shoulder, but it doesn't have to just kind of trade sideways for that long. It could actually break to the downside relatively soon as well. So overall, the market does seem like it's going to be most likely kind of sideways with a potential downside risk. And what you'll notice is the Nasdaq has that gap to get filled at $10,800. So the Nasdaq is also looking kind of bearish, and that in turn would lead to a bit of a push to the downside for a lot of tech stocks out there. Maybe other big companies out there, blue chips, are going to take hits too. So right now, it does seem like bears are gaining the edge, and they may actually push the market down again for tomorrow. Now, when it comes to Tesla, there is something a little bit different from it, and that is the fact that it has this gap up here, right? There's also a gap that's going to push this thing up to about, or it most likely will, because not all gaps have to get filled, but the large majority of the time they do if they are close or like not that far from the current range in the near term. So Tesla has another gap at about 600 and let me see, 697, 698 around there. And that to me could get filled relatively soon as well. So what this could be indicative of is Tesla may end up dropping if the market does drop tomorrow. Tesla could drop, fill this gap, get a nice bounce, and then get a push up right back up to fill that gap up there a little bit later. And it's also possible for us to fill this gap up here first, then drop down. But based off of this from a technical perspective, it seems less likely for us to see something like that because right now the market is a little bit apprehensive for the month of July. I mentioned this in so many videos. It's going to be a very important month. At the very end of July, the last week, we're going to find out what the GDP report was for Q2. And that's typically what is used to kind of determine if we were truly in a recession during this time. And the market still is yet to kind of react to that. On top of that, we have tons of earnings coming out for the month of July. I mean, there are days where we have over 100 of them. There's so many earnings coming out, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. And that in turn is also going to affect the market because when the mega caps, the big tech companies like Apple and Google and Meta and Amazon report their earnings and Tesla as well, this is going to be big for the markets. It's going to show us how are companies improving, what is the sentiment towards the markets, how are these big tech companies doing, are they missing on revenue? And typically when you have recessions or things like that, there could be a slowdown in consumer purchasing and demand. So we'll have to wait and see how this really turns out. The market is kind of on the edge right now, and that's part of the reason why we're seeing so many fake outs, so much choppy price action, and these market makers kind of taking advantage of these events. So with that said, what is probably going to happen to Tesla? Now, there is a bullish possibility because there was once a 3-day weekend, and right before the weekend, the market, I think, pushed up. And sometimes things like that could spontaneously happen. But right now, if I'm going to say this from a technical perspective, it seems much more likely we're going to continue to see downside and actually fill the gap right here because we're respecting a bit of a downward trend. If I zoom out of the chart into the 5 minutes, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. Let me just zoom out like this. You can see Tesla has been respecting a downward trend. It hasn't filled the gap yet. It came very close to doing that right over here by touching 656. And that to me is an indication that we're probably going to fill the gap tomorrow. So Tesla should actually end up dropping to that 650 range from just technicals alone. Now, is it possible for us to get a spontaneous push up? Yes, sometimes things like that happen. You should be prepared for that. But regardless if that ends up happening, right? Even if we end up pushing up and filling this gap, we are most likely going to end up dropping down anyways a little bit later, right back down to fill this gap. So let me actually draw this out for you just to make this more clear. What I think is going to happen, the most likely thing that will probably end up happening is this. Let me just make my chart as clear as possible for each and every one of you. So Tesla's right over here. Tesla ended up closing a little bit in the red. Going into tomorrow, let me actually, hold on. I want to change the color so it's a little better. Let me use this. Okay, so tomorrow, what typically happens when the market opens, we're getting these big drops into open. So Tesla might actually drop down, and we're going to look for that really key support zone that kind of holds us up. So it's possible early tomorrow morning we might actually fill this gap. And I think even if it doesn't happen early in the morning near the very start, it will most likely happen sometime tomorrow. So this is going to bring Tesla down to that 650 range. And just because the gap is at 650 doesn't mean we have to just bounce exactly there. But one of the key kind of like support zones, or a zone where Tesla could bounce off of, is that 640 range. So what I would look out for is just be on the lookout for 650 to 640, somewhere between that range. That's where Tesla may end up getting a bounce. And hopefully we can actually hold these ranges and not drop down too much and actually hold up pretty well. Now, if we can't bounce right over there, if we can't bounce off 640, then the next key zone is actually 626, which is where Tesla actually got a bounce previously. So do I think Tesla's going to go that low? I think it's unlikely, but it is a possibility, and you should be prepared for that. But anyways, like I said before, 640 is where I think Tesla might end up getting that bounce. It may trade in this range for a little bit of time, but then it might slowly kind of pick up some steam, kind of hold up in these ranges, and it might actually close a little bit in the red. So I am anticipating some red for tomorrow. I think the market's going to be kind of choppy. There are going to be a lot of these fake outs and like crazy moments where the technicals look kind of bullish, then all of a sudden it just pushes you off the water. I mean, we're all going through this, especially if you're trying to trade in this market. It's pretty crazy, but you have to stay strong. And if you could really master trading in this market, then things will be very good for you for the long term, because once the market improves, things will become much easier and much better. Now, a more bullish possibility that's less likely is this thing gets a spontaneous push to the upside. And many people didn't expect that. That could also happen because during a weekend, this actually happened once. And sometimes technicals don't even show it. It could just happen out of nowhere with these market makers pushing it up. Now, if that happens, if Tesla were to push up like this, and once again, I'm telling you, it's very, very unlikely for us to see something like that. But I want to just warn you, okay? Let's just say hypothetically, Tesla pushes up and it ends up filling that gap that's near 700. If that's the case, I wouldn't start partying just yet or getting super excited, because this could be a trap. And what's happening is when you look at the technical setup of the SPY, the NASDAQ, and the market, it's looking quite bearish. And we have those gaps for both the SPY and the NASDAQ, which seem quite likely to get filled relatively soon. So even if we end up closing kind of green, even if we like push up, I do see more downside coming later on in the later days, especially going into next week. So, regardless of what ends up happening, downside does seem a little bit more probable and more imminent based off how the charts have been moving, based off the patterns we're seeing. And I do expect a lot more choppy price action. So, with that said and done, you're probably wondering, okay, why are there two lines? What do you think is going to happen? I know anyone could say the chart will go up or down. That's not at all what I'm saying. I am saying that it's a possibility, but I think that it's very unlikely we see this move. It's very unlikely we actually push to 700. But I think the most likely outcome, we're most likely going to see the red line play out. We're most likely going to drop down into open and fill the gap right here. The only reason I'm talking about the more bullish possibilities because we've seen moves like this before during long weekends, and the market is closed on Monday. So I just want to be prepared. But like I said before, very unlikely. I would say there's maybe like a 15 to 20% chance we get a move like this. And there's a much higher chance we actually fill the gap down based off the setup we have. So I am predicting we're most likely going to fill the gap down there, where we should bounce around 640. If we don't bounce around that 640 range, then 626 is where you need to be looking. But with that out of the way, I just want to prepare you guys for both possibilities. And just to repeat myself, the red line is what I think will most likely end up happening. Okay. So going over support and resistance levels, right now the key resistance would be around 680. If we break 680, 700 could come. Once again, very unlikely. And if this thing drops down, hopefully 662 tries to hold us around 660. And I don't think that's going to hold us too strongly. We did break below that today. So then it's 653 to 650, which would be another zone that should try to hold us. But I don't think that's going to hold us that strongly. I think 640 is going to be more likely the area we get that bounce. So once again, for the third time, I'm predicting the red line. I see that as being a lot more probable. Now, I want to look at some other technical indicators before I end this video. Let me actually close each of these real quick. So for what I'm seeing playing out from Tesla, if you want to look at this from the Bollinger Band perspective, I mentioned in one of my videos that we saw the Bollingers kind of tightening around like right here. And we got a bit of a breakout from this point right here. And the breakout happened to the downside. So when Tesla gets ready to make a very big move to the upside, you want to look for the Bolingers to kind of come together, kind of come very close. And that's typically the indication of some big move that's set to come. And I think because the Tesla is so volatile, I think the 5 minute candle would look a lot, the 5 minute candles look a lot better to show this. So look at this for instance. Right here, we got this. The Bollinger Bands came very close to each other. Then we got a breakout. They expand. Then they come very narrow. They come close to each other. Then they expanded downward. They came close together right here, a little bit closer. They're starting to expand a bit. So this is an indication we might actually end up dropping a little bit more. Now, from other technical indicators, let me just quickly show these before I end the video and talk about Elon Musk. We could see on the 2 hour perspective, we're expecting a bit of a downward trend. The MACD flipped with the signal line, showing some bearish momentum here. RSI is also dropping with the chart, which is once again typically what happens. Still looks bearish from a technical standpoint, but I am well aware that sometimes there are fake outs. Sometimes the market will try to trick you. But in this instance, I just think we're most likely going to fill the gap down here. We're most likely going to see red for tomorrow, in my opinion. Now, with that out of the way, let me just actually get on with the Elon Musk news that's coming out. A lot of people are talking about how Elon Musk has been silent on Twitter for 9 straight days, and that's very long for him. And I think there's a very clear and easy cut explanation as to why this is happening. I think there's a chart in here, like right here. You could see Musk has gone almost 10 days without tweeting. That's the longest it's been without him since like before November of 2021. It's been a very long time since we've seen Musk this inactive. And I just don't necessarily think that this is a big deal whatsoever because it's the end of the quarter. And I mentioned this previously. It's the end of the quarter. I think Musk has been working very hard. I think he has a lot of work to do. A lot of things have been going on for Tesla, especially with their earnings report coming out, recessionary talks, lots of big meetings, and also the lockdowns in China. So all these things led to a lot of pressure, a lot of work for him. So I wouldn't be too surprised if that's the main reason as to why he's gone. I don't see this as something that's necessarily threatening or a bad thing as of right now. Just give the guy time, let him take a break from Twitter. He should be back soon. So we'll have to wait and see how this goes. And there's no indication that any of these things that people are instigating are really what's playing out. I just think he's fine, so don't worry too much about it. He should be back relatively soon. He did achieve 100 million followers, so I think he should be back pretty quickly, hopefully during the weekend. So just wait and see. Everything should be fine. I'm confident Musk is doing well, and I wish the best for him. I also wish the best for Tesla and each and every one of you. To end the video, yep, there's going to be downside, okay? The market is just like that. It's not always Tesla's fault. It's the overall market that's going to push this thing down. It's going to push the whole market down. But for the long term, you know the drill. We're all very bullish. We're all buying the dips. I'm not telling you to do that. It's up to you. But the majority of investors, the majority of people that watch this channel probably are holding Tesla and buying these dips. Very good buying opportunities are coming. And this is just another great opportunity for the long term when this share price soars to the absolute moon. So once again, non-financial advice. Thank you so much for listening. The future is still bright for this company. Fundamentals are strong, and I will definitely see you guys in the next one. Tesla to the moon, and peace out.